Shakers are going to be up next. We're going to get the bands chained over, but let's hear it again for Ding. They did this all pro bono. They're great guys. They're great musicians. They're good friends of ours. They're part of the family. They're on the right side of history. Next up, we have Keryn Newman. She's going to speak to this issue, and please listen to her words as they have weight, meaning, and are very important to all of us.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keryn Newman. I'm from Shepherdstown, West Virginia, but I do have family here in Franklin County. My daughter-in-law and my 3 grandsons are back there. We came out here to enjoy this beautiful area. So if you haven't heard me speak before, a little over 10 years ago, American Electric Power and First Energy, and American Electric Power is the parent company of Transource. Those 2 companies got together and they were going to build a project called the Potomac Appalachian Transmission High Line, or the PATH project. 765 kilovolts, 300 miles long across West Virginia, Maryland, and Virginia. Well, we stepped up to fight that. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I was just an ordinary person. But the more I learned, the more curious I got. And the more I learned, I figured that I could pass this knowledge on to other people so that every time somebody fights a power line, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And over the 10 years since then, I've helped numerous groups in different capacities fight transmission lines, strategize, and figure out what's going on and try and interpret some of the technical stuff that goes on. And so I've been working with the leadership of Stop Transource, both here and over in York and Harford County, since actually I knew about the project before I even met those people. I saw it coming about a year before you all knew about it, but I didn't know any of you all, so there was no way to really do anything. And when this project was announced, people found me, and I've been working with them ever since. So, why would you want to fight a power line? Well, if you fight, you can win. Matter of fact, there's a really good chance you can win if you fight them. However, if you just give up and don't even bother fighting, you've given away your power, and you're sure to lose. So, what's worth fighting for? Well, look around you. Your community. It's beautiful. It's very worth fighting. And since you all have started, there's been a lot of success that has happened with your groups. There's overwhelming opposition in the community. So you all are here. Your government supports you. And I believe your elected officials support you. And I actually read a quote in the newspaper from a hearing this summer at the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, where one of the utility judges said, you know, I'm going to have a real hard time approving this project. That's a hint. Your regulators don't like this project either. So, the elected officials and some of the leadership of the Stop Path group got together a few months ago, and they went to PJM Interconnection, the ones who decided that this was a great project that's going to save everybody money, everybody in Washington, Baltimore, and Northern Virginia. But anyhow, they're the ones who decided that this project was necessary. So the leadership went to them, and they said, you need to reevaluate this, because in order to be built, this project needs to have a cost-benefit ratio of at least 1.25 to 1. That means for every dollar they spend, there's going to be $1.25 worth of benefit for ratepayers. Of course, not all ratepayers get the same benefit. Some get more and some get less. Here, you're getting a lot less. So the group wrote to them, and then they got their elected officials to write to them. There was the governor of Maryland wrote a letter. There were some state officials from Maryland and some state officials, or elected officials, I'm sorry, from Pennsylvania. And finally, PJM said, well, we're going to go ahead and do that evaluation. We're going to see what the cost-benefit ratio is now. And that'll be done in September. And they kept telling everyone, September, it's going to be wonderful. So that meeting was held on Thursday. On Wednesday, they had to post their material. And if you looked at the presentation that they put up, they said the cost-benefit ratio is now 1.42%. That means for every dollar that they spend, they're going to get $1.42 worth of benefit. So the cost ratio has gone up. So therefore, this project is needed more than ever. So they said. But then there was that meeting on Thursday afternoon. I listened in on the phone because I couldn't go all the way up to Norristown, Pennsylvania in person. However, some of your leadership from York and Harford counties did go. There was Patty Hankins, Amy O'Neill, Dolores Crick, and Greg Goss. They went to Norristown, Pennsylvania in person to attend this meeting and ask questions. And they weren't the only ones who asked questions. State consumer advocates also called in on the phone and asked questions. And other utilities that are members of PJM and in the room were asking questions. And when the questions started getting asked, it was revealed that PJM's analysis was missing information and using old information in the new reanalysis. So it really didn't mean anything, but they made a big deal like it did. Some of the stuff it turned out that they were missing, generation retirements. There was announced at the meeting a bunch of new retirement of generation here in Pennsylvania, in southwestern Pennsylvania. I think it's the Bruce Mansfield in Samus, that First Energy plants that they're going to retire. And one of the utility representatives raised their hand and said, "So did you include that in your analysis?" And they said, No, we didn't include that. We just had to put a stake in the ground on a certain day. And once that stake's in the ground, we don't consider anything else that happened after that. So therefore, those happened after that, so we're not going to consider them. But the thing is, they're closing almost 4,000 megawatts of generation here in Pennsylvania that they were going to ship down there. So is that going to change? Yeah, it's probably going to change things, but they didn't consider it. Another thing they didn't consider, and new generation coming online, maybe down closer to where the need is, instead of bringing it all from here in Pennsylvania. Somebody said, "Did you include that?" And they said, nope, we didn't. And somebody said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, FERC's about to make a decision on that, and I think they're going to decide that we have to put it in there. But we're not going to do it until FERC orders us to do it." So if they consider new generation coming online closer to this need, then that's going to change their figures as well. But here's a really big thing that they did. They increased the cost of the project about $26 million in their little PowerPoint. And then the PJM guy says, well, that $26 million that we increased the price, that's from some substations, the one in Ringgold and the one in Harford County, that other utilities own, and they're going to have to update those substations to handle this new power line. That's the $26 million. And somebody said, well, what about PJM? Hasn't their costs gone up? He said, well, we didn't get that. They're putting stuff out for bids, and when they have a price, they'll let us know, and then maybe we'll look at it again. And somebody said, but wait a minute, the cost you used for the cost-benefit analysis is from 2015. We have all kinds of tariffs on steel and labor and all these other things that have gone up, and you're just going to ignore that? And PJM said, well, we really can't make them do it. The only thing is, I think it was Lori told me that the public utility judge here in Pennsylvania at the last hearing ordered Transource to get this information into PJM before this analysis was made. And Transource ignored them. So I hope your judges figure this one out, because they're the ones who can order them to do it. So how do you do a cost-benefit analysis if you don't know what the cost is? So pretty much what PJM did was useless garbage. We put a stake in the ground, and we're not going to consider anything else that's going to change in the next 15 years, but we're going to reevaluate this at some point. So when they supposedly get the new Transource cost, and they get their order from FERC, and then maybe later on they can include the retired generation and do another analysis soon. So keep the pressure on them to continue to reevaluate, because they were just pretty much ignoring this until the leadership asked for them to do it, the governor of Maryland asked for them to do it, some elected officials asked for them to do it. So you need to keep asking them. And you keep pressure on your legislators to hold PJM accountable. And I think you have done a really good job. Now, if your elected officials aren't against this project and with you, then you need to keep asking them why not, because this gives a big push to holding people accountable when the elected officials get involved. Because, for instance, the governors of the states, they're the ones who appoint the public utility commissioners who make these decisions. So if they're on your side, I mean, technically they're supposed to be impartial and everything, but you know what? The guy who's going to appoint you or reappoint you, if he says, hey, I don't really like this, so, we'll see what happens. So keep the pressure on politically, and keep the pressure on your regulators. You got to participate in the case. You got to show up at the public hearings. And you got to keep telling your story to everyone who will listen. Get your story out in the media, and I think you guys have done a lot of that, and that's great because more and more people find out about it and they don't like it. So, can you win this? Absolutely. I completely believe in you all, or I would not be here. If you've listened to me speak in the past, I've recited a big long list of projects that have been canceled in the past 10 years or so. And tonight, I'm going to add another one. Over the summer, I got involved with some landowners about something called Windcatcher. It's a project out in Oklahoma, also owned by American Electric Power, the parent of Transource. This project was going to build 800 new wind turbines, hundreds of square miles of new turbines. And then they needed a 350-mile, 765 kilovolt transmission line to run clear across the state of Oklahoma to take this electricity and export it to other states like Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas. So landowners got involved in a very late stage of the game. They exerted political, regulatory, and public opinion pressure. And quickly, in July, the project was canceled. It was a really quick fight. Now, usually when I get involved with groups, I say, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't exhaust yourself. This is going to go on for longer than you ever imagined. Except in that fight, I said, this is a sprint. We got to hurry up and get this done. But it was done. It was canceled. So that fight was quick. This one's not so quick. It's got different drivers and different deadlines, but I do think it's winnable. So in order to win, you have to be part of the regulatory